Somber, reflective music begins softly in the background. I always imagined the day my daughter got married would be the happiest day of my life. I spent years dreaming of it, picturing her walking down the aisle, glowing with love and pride, while I sat there, tears in my eyes, watching the little girl I raised step into her new life. But instead, that day became the one I wish I could erase forever. My name is Margaret. I raised my daughter Clara alone after her father passed away when she was only 8. Life was never easy. I worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table and pay for her schooling. There were nights when I went hungry, pretending I wasn't hungry so she could eat the last slice of bread. But she was my world. Every birthday, every school award, every late night talk, I held on to those as proof that maybe I wasn't failing as a mother. When she got engaged, I was over the moon. I thought, finally, my sacrifices are worth it. She was marrying a man named Ethan, kind, soft-spoken, or at least that's what I believed. He came from a wealthy family, and I was so relieved, thinking Clara would finally have the comfortable life I could never give her. I felt like I had done it. I had gotten her to the finish line. When the wedding planning began, Clara was distant. At first, I thought it was stress. She barely called, and when I offered to help with the arrangements, she said, "Mum, it's okay. Ethan's parents are taking care of most of it. You don't need to worry." I smiled, pretending her words didn't sting, but deep down, something felt off. Still, I tried to be there, offering to pay for her dress fittings, bringing her lunch during long planning sessions, sending her little notes of encouragement. One afternoon, I arrived at her new apartment with a box of old wedding decorations from my own marriage, sentimental things that might have been nice to reuse. She looked at the box and sighed. "Mom, we're not doing that kind of wedding. It's too outdated." Her tone wasn't cruel, but it was cold, and in her eyes I saw something I had never seen before: embarrassment. She was embarrassed of me, of my worn-out hands, of my thrift store clothes, of the mother who had built her world from scraps. The day of the wedding arrived, a bright sunny morning that felt like a cruel joke. I had bought a new dress, a simple lavender one, the most expensive thing I'd owned in years. I wanted to look my best for her. When I got to the bridal suite, the room was buzzing with stylists and bridesmaids in silk robes, sipping champagne. Clara was in the center of it all, looking like a princess. When she saw me, her smile faltered for just a second. "Mum, you're here," she said, her voice strained. Before I could even hug her, a woman I didn't recognize, Ethan's mother, glided over. She was dripping in diamonds and wore a gown that probably cost more than my car. "Margaret, so good to see you," she said, though her eyes scanned my simple dress with a look of disdain. She then turned to Clara and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Darling, the photographer is here for the family portraits. Just us and Ethan's family for now. We'll get some with everyone else later." I stood there, frozen. Us, I wasn't part of us. I was everyone else. My own daughter didn't correct her. She just nodded, avoiding my gaze, and followed her future mother-in-law out of the room. I was left standing alone, an outsider at my own daughter's wedding. The bridesmaids whispered, and I felt jiggish glances like tiny needles. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I quietly slipped out of the room, my heart a lead weight in my chest. I found a small, empty garden behind the venue and just sat on a bench, the lavender dress feeling like a costume. I could hear the distant music and laughter, a world I wasn't a part of. I cried. I cried for the little girl who used to hold my hand so tightly. I cried for the mother who thought her love would be enough. I cried because, in that moment, I realized I hadn't just lost my daughter to another man, had lost her to a world of wealth and status that I could never belong to. Later, during the ceremony, I sat in the back row. I couldn't bear to be up front, to have everyone see the mother who was cast aside. When they said their vows, I didn't see the love and pride I had dreamed of. I saw a transaction. I saw my daughter sealing her entry into a new family, leaving her old one behind. During the reception, Clara finally came over to my table. "Mum, are you okay? You've been so quiet." Her voice was filled with a hollow concern. I looked at her, my beautiful daughter, and I saw a stranger. I couldn't pretend anymore. "No, Clara, I'm not okay," I whispered, my voice trembling. "They excluded me from the family photos." She sighed, that same dismissive sigh from before. "Mum, it wasn't a big deal. Diane, she meant Ethan's mother. She just wanted a few specific shots." "You're overreacting, overreacting." The word hit me like a slap. All the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the hunger writ, all amounted to me overreacting. "I am your mother, Clara," I said, my voice barely audible. "I raised you. I was your family long before they were." Tears streamed down my face, but she didn't seem to see them. "Please don't make a scene," she hissed, glancing around to see if anyone was watching. That was it. That was the moment my heart didn't just break, it shattered. My pain was an inconvenience, a potential scene at her perfect, expensive party. I stood up. I couldn't stay there a second longer. "You're right," I said, my voice suddenly clear and steady. "This isn't the place for me." I walked away from her, from the lavish decorations, from the polite smiles and the cold hearts. As I walked out of that reception hall and into the night, I didn't look back. I left behind the daughter I knew and the dream I had held on to for so long. The drive home was a blur of tears. That night, I packed a bag. I couldn't stay in the house filled with her photos, with memories of a love that now felt like a lie. I needed to find myself again, away from the shadow of being Clara's mother. I left a simple note. "I hope you have a happy life. I need to find mine." It's been a year since that day. I moved to a small coastal town, got a job at a local library, and started painting again, something I hadn't done since before Clara was born. I've heard through a relative that she and Ethan are still married. She has tried to call a few times, but I haven't been able to answer. The wound is still too raw. I don't know if we'll ever be able to mend what was broken. Maybe one day she will understand the depth of what she threw away. But I've learned something important. My value as a person, as a woman, isn't tied to being her mother. My worth isn't determined by the sacrifices I made. I am Margaret, and for the first time in a very long time, that feels like it's enough. Sometimes healing means letting go. It means walking away from the people who make you feel small, even if you love them. It means choosing yourself. It's the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt unseen or unappreciated by those you love most, know that you are not alone. Please consider subscribing for more stories that touch the heart. We'll see you in the next video. Have you ever felt like you were becoming a stranger to someone you love? That's what started happening with my daughter, Clara. The closer her wedding day approached, the more she pulled away. It began subtly. Visits were cancelled. My calls went to voicemail more and more often. When I did manage to get her on the phone, her voice was distant, her answers clipped and distracted. It felt like I was talking to a polite stranger, not my own little girl. The feeling was a cold stone in my stomach, a constant dull ache that wouldn't go away. One evening, I decided to surprise her with her favorite homemade cookies. I drove over, my heart a little lighter, hoping to see her smile. But as I walked up to her apartment, I heard voices through the slightly ajar door. It was Clara and her fiancé Ethan. I paused, not wanting to interrupt. I just don't want her to make a scene, Ethan, Clara whispered. Her voice was strained. She can be emotional. My breath caught in my throat. Ethan's reply was quick and dismissive. Then don't invite her to everything. She'll understand. I couldn't move. The cookies felt heavy in my hands. Understand? What was I supposed to understand? That I was an embarrassment, a problem to be managed. I carefully backed away, closing the door so softly they wouldn't hear. I drove home in a daze, the world blurring through my tears. That night, I sat alone in my quiet house, clutching the wedding invitation she had finally mailed me. My name was there, printed in small, neat letters at the bottom, almost like an afterthought. It wasn't a loving invitation. It felt like an obligation, and I cried silently for the daughter I felt I was losing. The rehearsal dinner arrived. I spent hours getting ready, wanting to look my best, to show them I could fit in. I chose a soft blue dress, one I'd saved from my 50th birthday. It always made me feel elegant. But the moment I stepped into the restaurant, that confidence evaporated. The hostess looked at me, a flicker of confusion on her face. "Oh," she said, her voice laced with surprise. "Are you the bride's mother?" Her tone made me feel like I was an unexpected guest at my own daughter's event. When I walked into the private room, I understood why she was so surprised. The room was filled with Ethan's family. They were a sea of expensive fabrics, polished smiles, and loud, confident laughter. They looked like they belonged on the cover of a magazine. And there, at the center of it all, was Clara. She was radiant, glowing, but when her eyes met mine, her beautiful smile faltered, just for a second. "Mum," she said, rushing over, "I didn't think you'd come. You didn't need to." Her words weren't warm or welcoming. They were careful, measured, like she was handling a delicate and perhaps unwanted situation. Despite the cold welcome, I held out my gift. It was a small, simple gold bracelet, the very one I had worn on my own wedding day. It was my most treasured possession. I wanted her to have a piece of me, a piece of our family's history, with her on her big day. She took it, her hand trembling slightly as she tucked it into her purse. She didn't look at it. She didn't thank me with any real warmth. It was just a polite, awkward exchange. It was as if she was afraid to be seen with this simple, sentimental object in front of her new, glamorous family. Dinner was an exercise in invisibility. I was seated at the far end of the table, an island in a sea of strangers who had no interest in me. I tried to join the conversation to share a funny story about Clara when she was a little girl, how she used to wear a superhero cape everywhere she went. But before I could finish, Ethan's mother cut in smoothly. "Oh, how sweet," she said with a tight smile. "But Clara doesn't really talk about her childhood much." The message was clear. My stories, my memories. Our past it wasn't welcome here. The air grew cold. I felt a tightness in my chest, a lump in my throat that I couldn't swallow. I couldn't stay. I mumbled an excuse about a headache and quietly slipped out of the restaurant. But it wasn't a headache. It was a heartache, a profound, suffocating sadness that made it impossible to breathe. Walking out into the cool night air, I felt completely and utterly alone. I had never felt so invisible in my entire life, especially not in the eyes of my own daughter. Was this my new reality, to be a footnote in her new, shiny life? The thought was unbearable. The morning of the wedding, I woke before the sun. The house was still and dark, matching the emptiness I felt inside. I couldn't sleep, my mind replaying every painful moment from the night before. I mechanically went through the motions. I ironed my dress, the same blue one, trying to smooth out the creases as if I could smooth out the hurt in my heart. I packed a small purse, making sure I had tissues. Then I got in my car and began the 2-hour drive to the wedding venue. Every mile felt longer than the last, the road stretching out before me like a long, lonely path. I didn't know what I was driving toward, a celebration, or the final confirmation that I had truly lost my daughter. I just knew I had to be there. I had to see it through, no matter how much it hurt. If you've ever felt this kind of quiet heartbreak, please know you're not alone. Sometimes, life's biggest changes can feel isolating. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. It means the world to me to share these moments with you. After the ceremony, as everyone gathered for photos, I approached her carefully. "Clara, sweetheart, before you go, I just want to give you something." I held out a small, unassuming envelope. Inside was a check I had saved for years, working extra shifts, skipping vacations, putting aside every spare dollar, $30,000. My entire life savings. She took it, her eyes widening as she saw the amount. "Mum, what is this?" "It's my wedding gift to you," I said softly, my voice barely a whisper. "For your future, for your new home together." Her lips parted in what I thought was disbelief, maybe even gratitude. Ethan, her new husband, looked over her shoulder, and for the first time that day, he actually smiled at me, a look of genuine impressiveness on his face. In that fleeting moment, I dared to hope. I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this grand gesture, this sacrifice, will finally heal the rift between us. I pictured her hugging me tightly, whispering, "Thank you, Mum, I love you." But instead, her smile froze into something cold and sharp. She leaned in close, so close I could feel the chill from her words before she even spoke them. "Mum, the best wedding gift you could possibly give me is to disappear from my life for good." Her voice was a venomous whisper. "You're the worst mother anyone could ask for, and I won't let you ruin my new family the way you ruined ours." The world around me went silent. The cheerful chatter of the wedding guests faded into a distant hum. All I could hear was the frantic, painful hammering of my own heart in my chest. Each beat was a reminder of her words, driving them deeper and deeper into me. I felt every eye on us, even though no one had heard. I just stood there, paralyzed, the empty space where the envelope had been feeling colder than ice. The check, my life's savings, was in her hand, but my heart, my spirit, had been shattered on the floor. Weeks bled into months. The silence from Clara was deafening. There were no calls, not a single text message to see if I was okay. No pictures from her exotic honeymoon, no updates on their new life. The house, which once felt like a cozy home, now felt like a vast, empty cavern. The silence was so unbearable that I started leaving the TV on all day and night just to have some background noise to pretend I wasn't completely alone. The canned laughter from sitcoms became my only company. One afternoon, while mindlessly scrolling through social media, a post stopped me dead. It was a photo album from Clara, picture after picture of her and Ethan beaming with joy in a beautiful new house. The sun streamed through large windows. They were clinking champagne glasses on a pristine patio. They were painting a wall together, laughing. The caption beneath the photos read, "New beginnings, with the best family I could ever ask for. So excited for our future." I scrolled through the comments, my heart sinking with each one. Friends and family were congratulating them, admiring their home, and not once, Not in a single comment or reply was I mentioned. It was as if I didn't exist, as if the money that likely paid for that very house had fallen from the sky. I sat there staring at the screen, scrolling through the images of her perfect life until the vibrant colors blurred together through a thick wall of tears. I was a ghost in my own daughter's story. A full year passed, a year of silence, a year of holidays spent alone, a year of learning to live with a constant ache in my chest. Then, on a dark, rainy evening, the kind where the world seems to be weeping with you, there was a sudden, urgent knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart leaped into my throat. Wiping my hands on my apron, I went to the door and peered through the peephole. I froze. It was Ethan, my son-in-law, but he looked nothing like the confident, smiling man from the wedding photos. His hair was a mess, his clothes were wrinkled, and his face was etched with a deep, weary exhaustion. He looked broken. Hesitantly, I opened the door. Ethan, he looked up at me, his eyes hollow. "Margaret, I'm so sorry to bother you. I didn't know where else to go." My maternal instincts, the ones Clara had so cruelly rejected, kicked in immediately. I stepped aside, ushering him out of the rain. Come in, what's wrong? Is Clara okay?" He stepped inside, dripping water onto the welcome mat. He let out a long, heavy sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the entire world. He couldn't even look me in the eye. "Clara left me," he said, his voice cracking. "She took the money you gave us, and she's gone." My heart sank. He handed me a letter, and my breath caught in my throat. It was in Clara's handwriting. The words were short, hurried, a blade twisting in my chest. She wrote that she wasn't ready for marriage, that she needed to find herself, and that she was sorry for everything. I read it over and over, my vision blurring until the ink ran together, smeared by my own tears. The dress, the flowers, the vows, they all became ghosts in a room that was supposed to be filled with joy. Months crawled by, each one a silent echo of the wedding that never was. Then, one afternoon, a car pulled into the driveway. It was Clara. She looked thinner, older, carrying a fragility I'd never seen before. She stood on my porch, her gaze fixed on the worn wooden planks, unable to meet my eyes. "Mum." Her voice was a quiet whisper, barely carried by the breeze. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I was cruel. I thought I needed to erase where I came from to be happy." In that moment, all the angry words I had rehearsed in my head, all the nights I had spent wondering why asterisk, they all just dissolved. I didn't say a word. I just opened the door wider. "Come in, sweetheart," I said, my voice softer than I expected. "You must be cold." That was all it took. She fell into my arms, her body shaking with sobs that seemed to carry the weight of the entire world. I held her just like I did when she was a little girl who'd fallen and scraped her knee. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, a sense of peace settled over me. Because sometimes I've learned the only way to teach love is to let people walk away. To let them go far enough to finally turn around and realize what they left behind. Now, when I sit by my window and watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, I still think about that wedding day. The pain hasn't vanished completely. A part of that ache will always live inside me, a shadow of what could have been, but I've learned something profound, something deeper than the hurt. Being a mother isn't about being loved back in the way you expect. It's not about perfect moments or thank yous, but it's about loving fiercely and unconditionally, even when it hurts. It's about keeping the door open, always. Clara visits me now, every Sunday. She helps me in the garden, her hands in the same soil I've tended for years. We cook together, the kitchen filled with the familiar smells of our shared history, and she never ever leaves without turning at the door and saying, "I love you, Mum." And though a part of me will always mourn what was lost that day, another part, a stronger part, whispers back, "It was worth it." Because sometimes the cruelest words from the ones we love become the silence that teaches them what love truly meant. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd like this video and subscribe for more. It means the world.